Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So yeah, let's talk about Amazon, Swin Cash, and this entire Amazon team, because I have a lot to say. First of all, shout out to Kelsey Plum. Seriously, shout out to Kelsey Plum, because she was not falling for any of it. If you guys don't know, this is exactly why I hate Indiana Fever games being on Amazon Prime, unless someone like Candace Parker is on the broadcast. It just feels like they constantly go after Caitlin Clark. Think about it. Before the last game against Atlanta, which, yes, was also on Amazon, the entire pre-game show focused on Caitlin Clark in a negative way. I'm not exaggerating when I say the entire pre-game show was basically criticizing Caitlin Clark for what felt like 5 straight minutes. They were complaining about her game, and then they started trying to explain how Caitlin Clark should play defense. They were saying things like, "You need to force players into the help defense." And I'm sitting there thinking, what are you talking about? That's the problem. There is no help defense. You can't force someone into help if nobody is there to help. There are so many moments during Indiana Fever games where Caitlin Clark does exactly what she's supposed to do defensively. She pushes players toward where the help defense should be, and then nobody rotates over, leaving her exposed. But people don't want to talk about that. Instead, they compare her to Olivia Miles and say, well, Olivia Miles has been better because she forces players into the help. Well, of course it looks better when the help is actually there. Then, before the game, Swin Cash was asked what the key was for the Indiana Fever to win, and Swin Cash basically said that Caitlin Clark needed to stop complaining to the refs. Come on now. Whether Caitlin Clark complained to the refs or not had absolutely nothing to do with the Indiana Fever winning that game. Nothing. And then after the game, hearing all the analysis afterward was honestly hilarious because it was nothing but buzzwords.
They kept a fresh body on Caitlin at all times. Look, Caitlin had 26 points, right? All of her baskets, she had somebody right there. It was rare that we just saw an open shot. And so they were applying pressure all day long. But the Fever, sometimes when you get into a situation where the ball stays in her hand a little bit longer, there's stretches where other players aren't touching it.
Yes, yeah. And I just want to add on to, with the defense and deflection.
I've got to be honest, my biggest problem with all of this is that people keep singling out Caitlin Clark. Every single conversation somehow comes back to Caitlin Clark. Every loss is Caitlin Clark's fault. Every offensive struggle is Caitlin Clark's fault. Every issue with team chemistry is Caitlin Clark's fault. And I just don't understand it because she's the only player on this Indiana Fever team who consistently looks to pass the ball first. Now, let's be clear. I understand that Caitlin Clark is a heliocentric player. There are positives to heliocentric basketball, and there are negatives to heliocentric basketball. That's true for every system. I really wish Chris Paul had never gotten injured, because if Chris Paul never gets hurt, James Harden probably has a championship ring. Would that change anything about basketball? No, but it would give people a clear example that a heliocentric system can absolutely win at the highest level. Basketball history is full of people saying you can't win like that. People said you couldn't win with a non-defensive center. Then Nikola Jokic proved them wrong. People said you couldn't win with a small guard leading the show. Then Jalen Brunson proved them wrong. Everything in basketball is impossible until somebody actually does it. You can't, until suddenly you can. If a style of play gets you to the finals, then that style of play can win a championship. Let's be real about Luka Doncic. If in 2024 Jason Tatum tears his Achilles a year earlier, the Dallas Mavericks probably win the finals, and suddenly Luka Doncic has a ring. Does that change Luka Doncic as a player? No. It changes the conversation around him, but it doesn't change what he is as an individual player. The same thing applies here. LeBron James played heliocentric basketball in 2016. You can absolutely win playing that way if you have the right pieces around you. And that's where the Indiana Fever have a problem. Because when Caitlin Clark isn't on the floor, this team simply does not move the basketball. I kid you not. Go look at the box score. Caitlin Clark misses 9 14 minutes, finishes with 7 assists and 5 steals, and the rest of the Indiana Fever roster combines for 9 assists and 12 turnovers. 9 assists and 12 turnovers. That's not a Caitlin Clark problem. That's a team problem. When Caitlin Clark sits down, the ball movement disappears. People want to say, well, Caitlin Clark dominates the ball too much. Okay, then explain why the offense becomes even more stagnant when she's on the bench. Explain why teammates struggle to create open looks without her. Explain why the passing completely dries up. The reality is that when Caitlin Clark isn't on the floor, the offense turns into an ISO game. It's Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark taking turns. Your turn, my turn. And when Caitlin Clark isn't there, Kelsey Mitchell goes dribble, 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 and puts up difficult shots. Now, when those shots go in, nobody complains. Everybody loves it when Kelsey Mitchell gets hot. And to be fair, she can absolutely score. But process matters. You cannot rely on difficult shot making over an entire season unless you have the perfect roster around it. Can you win with Kelsey Mitchell as your first option? Sure, but you need dogs around her. You need athletic defenders. You need players who can switch everything, create turnovers, and run in transition. The Indiana Fever don't have that roster. They simply don't. And that's why it frustrates me when I hear the media talk about this team, especially Amazon. It always seems to come back to Amazon. The narrative becomes, this player played great, but let me find a reason to blame them anyway. We've seen the exact same thing happen with Luka Doncic. And do you know who has echoed those same criticisms about Luka Doncic? Stephanie White. I don't get it because the numbers are obvious. The Fever move the ball less when Caitlin Clark is on the bench. If you want to criticize heliocentric basketball, that's fine. There are valid criticisms, but don't pretend Caitlin Clark isn't the most willing passer on this team. The Indiana Fever struggle to generate assists without her. That's a fact. When Caitlin Clark doesn't play, the offense becomes Kelsey Mitchell isolation buckets and Aaliyah Boston touches in the post. That's what it is. The Fever do not create easy shots without Caitlin Clark. That's the problem. Now, if your argument is that having Caitlin Clark forces you into a heliocentric system, okay, I can understand that point. But if that's truly how you feel, then you have to make a decision, because Caitlin Clark's trade value is incredibly high right now. If the organization genuinely believes she cannot adapt, waiting 2 or 3 years is a massive risk. She's on a max contract. If injuries continue or if she never develops outside of this style, her value decreases significantly. That's just reality. But personally, I think the media criticism has gone way too far, because there are legitimate conversations to have about heliocentric basketball. The biggest criticism isn't that it can't work, it's that you need a very specific roster. You need the Iverson Sixers. You need role players who understand exactly what they're supposed to do. Honestly, if you replaced Jalen Brunson with Luka Doncic on the same roster, especially in a finals environment where games slow down and isolation becomes more important, I think Luka Doncic wins a championship. That's how much roster construction matters. It's never just about the style. It's about the pieces around the style. But instead, the conversation always becomes, Caitlin is the reason her teammates don't get involved. No one on this team passes except Caitlin Clark. That's the issue. Raven Johnson struggles offensively. Ty Harris is an old-school point guard. She's your Mario Chalmers type player. She gets the ball across half court, takes open shots when they're there, passes the ball, and gets out of the way. And somehow, Caitlin Clark gets blamed for all of it. It's an easy cop-out. That's what it is. She's the best player on the team, but somehow she's also not the best player, according to some people. The logic doesn't make sense. And I saw Tony East talk about this, and he's absolutely right. The big three don't fit together. They don't. I've said it since before the season started. This isn't about blaming anyone. Caitlin Clark is not an adaptable player right now, and that is a flaw in her game. I've said that from the beginning. My hot take before the season was that the Indiana Fever would start the year at .50. Why? Because this team is caught between two identities, the up-tempo style of CC basketball and gritty ISO ball. Those two styles don't naturally fit together. That's why this team isn't clicking. But somehow, every conversation ends with, Caitlin needs to adapt. everything is Caitlin's fault. According to some people, it's always Caitlin's fault. And look, to be fair, yesterday's game wasn't perfect. When Caitlin Clark came back in during the fourth quarter, she struggled. I'll give her that. But through 3 quarters, she was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.